Is a gravel bike worth it? In this video, I'm gonna tell you. Now the short answer is, heck yeah, man, a gravel bike is totally worth it. When I first started riding bikes, there really was no such thing as even mountain bikes. Back in the late 70s and 80s is when mountain bikes really started getting started. So gravel bikes weren't even a thing at that point. Road bikes were called 10 speeds because that's all they had was 10 speeds. So in this video, I'm gonna give you 3 reasons why a gravel bike is totally worth it. Number 1, the first reason is you get to explore your environment. It is so much fun to have a gravel bike because, you know, a road bike you don't want to get dirty. A mountain bike you have to put in your car, drive to the location, do your mountain biking, put the bike back on the car, come home, clean it. It's a whole, 4 hours of time. All of a sudden you only get 2 hours of actual mountain biking. So with a gravel bike, it is so awesome because you simply leave from your house and you're on the road. And if you're riding down the road and then you all of a sudden see a dirt path that goes up a hill, you just turn and go. You can go anywhere you want. You don't have to be restricted to the road and you don't have to be super slow on the dirt. It is the most versatile bike, and it's one of those that you can just simply explore, and the bike is able to go anywhere. I've done bike rides where I have literally not know where I'm gonna go. I'll just go up into the mountains, and whether I want to stay on the road is fine. I'll be out there all day long, and half the day I'll be on dirt roads and fire trails, and the other half I'll be on the street. But it's basically a door-to-door type of ride. So if I was out there for 4 hours, I literally got 4 hours of riding. To me, a gravel bike is like the Swiss Army knife of bikes. Number 2, a gravel bike, there's much less emphasis on how many watts you're putting out, what your average speed is, winning at all costs, training plans, training peaks, all these things that most cyclists worry about. Gravel bikes don't seem to have that same type of attraction. It's more based on soul rides and just having a great time. I mean, who gives a crap? Just go out and ride your bike, have a good time. Now, having said that, what's interesting is when I first got my bike, all of a sudden I started noticing instead of Gran Fondos, they had these things called gravel grinders. And it was basically a Gran Fondo that was on dirt, and it was a lot of fun. It wasn't a race or anything like that. It was just kind of like a Gran Fondo, but just happened to be on dirt. At the end, there was kind of a little party with tacos and beer. How great is that? So I've noticed recently there are no real gravel grinders. They don't call them that anymore. They call them gravel races. And of course now with gravel racing, it's now a race. And with racing, there is now prize money and bragging rights, and all of a sudden, now it's just totally changed, and you have ex-professionals which are entering these gravel races and just kicking everybody's butt. But the truth of the matter is that most of these gravel races are kind of like marathons in running. 99.9% of people are just there to finish it, have a good time. It's that 1% that's really racing the event. So the gravel races are still kind of like Gran Fondos and century rides and marathons where the majority of people are not racing it. So it's still right now type of event that you can enter and just have a good time. Hopefully it won't become like standard racing where they have to limit the number of people, because if you go and you enter a road race or you go and enter a criterium, there's no one there that's doing it for fun. Everyone's out for blood and they're there to kill you. The third and final reason why a gravel bike is actually worth it is because of comfort. Are you older like me? Are you all of a sudden starting to notice as years go by that you're not as flexible as you used to be and things don't feel as good, and when you fall down you don't exactly bounce? Well, basically the gravel bike is for you and I. A gravel bike, when you compare it to a road bike, is really built for comfort and has a number of features that you may want to add to that comfort. First of all, a gravel bike is going to have wider tires. Wider tires make it more secure for you when you're riding. It actually is more comfortable, and if you get tubeless tires, you can actually ride lower tire pressures, which add a bit of cushion as you're riding. So all those bumps at the end of a long ride don't add up so that your shoulders, your elbows, your hands, your back, your hips don't hurt as much. Also, a gravel bike has a longer wheelbase, and what that means is it's not as twitchy. So if you're riding down a hill, you're gonna feel much more secure riding down that hill, much more comfortable, and the bike is gonna just handle better rather than a standard road bike geometry. So it would be like going downhill in a big old Cadillac rather than a small Porsche. Also, gravel bikes generally have a lower bottom bracket where the cranks actually come into the frame. And the reason that's important is because when you're going downhill, you don't want to feel high up because you're going to feel like your bike will slip out from underneath you. A lower bottom bracket essentially gives you the feeling that you're more down lower to the ground, and it's much more comfortable when you're going downhill. Also, currently this year, gravel bikes are starting to have a lot more shocks. Some gravel bikes even have a front suspension and a back suspension. Most of them have something in the front. And the reason this is important is because the gravel bike will actually absorb all the bumps and things where you won't feel like you're going downhill or even uphill like this. It'll be much more smooth. It's almost like riding a mountain bike. And the last aspect of how a gravel bike is built is in the geometry, is you're probably going to be sitting more upright. And the reason that's important is because, again, as you get older, you're going to start to accumulate arthritis, you're going to start to accumulate little herniated discs. And more upright means that your back and your neck are going to feel so much better after a long day of riding. So is a gravel bike worth it? Absolutely it is. So if you are going to get a gravel bike, you're going to need to put oil on the chain. And if you would like to know what type of chain oil that I particularly use, I actually don't use oil. I actually use wax. And there's a whole procedure for that, but it'll keep your bike a lot cleaner. And if you'd like to learn about that, then just hit this link right here. Watch that video, because I'll tell you how exactly I go about using wax on my chain. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and just hit that button right there. And also hit the notification buttons, because what I'll do is I'll produce a video about cycling in Southern California about once a week.